Ronson's productions might have been designed to illustrate what Frederick Jameson called the nostalgia mode. Jameson identifies this tendency in his remarkably prescient writings on postmodernism, beginning in the 1980s. What makes Valerie and the Arctic Monkeys typical of postmodern retro is the way in which they perform anachronism. While they are sufficiently historical-sounding to pass on first listen as belonging to the period which they ape, there is something not quite right about them. Discrepancies in texture, the results of modern studio and recording techniques, mean that they belong neither to the present nor to the past, but to some implied timeless era, an eternal 1960s or an eternal 80s. The classic sound, its elements now serenely liberated from the pressures of historical becoming, can now be periodically buffed up by new technology. It is important to be clear about what Jameson means by the nostalgia mode. He is not referring to psychological nostalgia. Indeed, the nostalgia mode, as Jameson theorizes it, might be said to preclude psychological nostalgia, since it arises only when a coherent sense of historical time breaks down. The kind of figure capable of exhibiting and expressing a yearning for the past belongs, actually, to a paradigmatically modernist moment. Think, for instance, of Proust's and Joyce's ingenious exercises in recovering lost time. Jameson's nostalgia mode is better understood in terms of a formal attachment to the techniques and formulas of the past, a consequence of a retreat from the modernist challenge of innovating cultural forms adequate to contemporary experience. Jameson's example is Lawrence Kasdan's now half-forgotten film Body Heat, 1981, which, although it was officially set in the 1980s, feels as if it belongs to the 30s. Body Heat is technically not a nostalgia film, Jameson writes, since it takes place in a contemporary setting, in a little Florida village near Miami. On the other hand, this technical contemporaneity is most ambiguous indeed. Technically, its objects, its cars for instance, are 1980s products. But everything in the film conspires to blur that immediate contemporary reference and to make it possible to receive this too as nostalgia work, as a narrative set in some indefinable nostalgic past, an eternal 1930s, say, beyond history. It seems to me exceedingly symptomatic to find the very style of nostalgia films invading and colonizing even those movies today which have contemporary settings, as though, for some reason, we were unable today to focus our own present, as though we had become incapable of achieving aesthetic representations of our own current experience. But if that is so, then it is a terrible indictment of consumer capitalism itself, or at the very least, an alarming and pathological symptom of a society that has become incapable of dealing with time and history. What blocks Body Heat from being a period piece or a nostalgia picture in any straightforward way is its disavowal of any explicit reference to the past. The result is anachronism, and the paradox is that this blurring of official contemporaneity, this waning of historicity, is increasingly typical of our experience of cultural products. Another of Jameson's examples of the nostalgia mode is Star Wars. One of the most important cultural experiences of the generations that grew up from the 1930s to the 1950s was the Saturday afternoon series of the Buck Rogers type. Alien villains, true American heroes, heroines in distress, the death ray or the doomsday box, and the cliffhanger at the end, whose miraculous solution was to be witnessed next Saturday afternoon. Star Wars reinvents this experience in the form of a pastiche. There is no point to a parody of such series, since they are long extinct.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.